Make it rain. Love, love, love is sunshine. Make it rain. Love, love, love is sunshine. Everybody, 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 everybody. Thank you. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Cindy. That's one of my favorites. Thank you. I say that a lot, don't I? Good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday to you. Well, it's always an adventure getting up and thinking about and praying about and listening to what my lesson is for the week. And I didn't really get an awareness about what my lesson would be until yesterday, actually. And I, really kind of heard and felt the news of the things that have happened in Paris, and the sadness and the tragedy of that, and the hurt that is in the world today. Not just because of that, because we know that this is one experience and one event that is sad and tragic in life and in the world. And it came to me that there's a lot of different ways that people respond and react to these kinds of circumstances and situations. And some of them are very knee-jerk reactions, as you probably can imagine. And we respond oftentimes with the same kind of energy that we pick up from the experience and the event itself. And that's not always necessarily the best thing to do, is it? And yet it's natural, it's normal. We have a tendency to really tune into the dramas of life. And it is a sad and tragic thing, and we certainly want to hold in our hearts the pain and the suffering that is being experienced by all of the families and all of those in Paris who have lost their lives, and around the world for that matter, in any of these kinds of experiences and events. But what really came to me is that one of the most important things that we can do is to really be open to allowing this to be a healing experience, a healing event. And to participate in a way that allows not only for that healing to happen for the families and for those who were affected by this directly, but to be participants in a healing process for our race, for the humankind. And that really does begin by us doing our own inner work to heal whatever is going on for us about these kinds of experiences and events. In Matthew chapter 10, verse 28, Jesus said, "Do not be afraid of those who kill the body but cannot kill the soul. Rather be afraid of the one who can destroy both soul and body in hell." In Unity, we understand that hell is not just a place that you go to be punished when you die. It's just not part of what we teach. We understand that really we can be in hell in any given moment, can't we? And a lot of that has to do with the choices that we make about how we are going to show up and how we're going to express and how we're going to be in our life. We can be in a situation where we are absolutely ignorant and blind to what's going on in our own life and world and what we're putting into the world. And that can create all kinds of experiences of hell, can it? Part of our spiritual work is to become aware, to become conscious, not only of what's going on outside of us, not only what's going on out here in the world, but what's going on out here in the world that is coming from what's going on in here in me. And what am I participating in? And how am I participating in the life events and the circumstances in life? You know, I always like stories, and I always like to, even though things can be really somber at times, it's always, I think, valuable to kind of look at things from a place of levity as well. There's a story of Irving, and Irving is driving down the freeway, and the cell phone rings, and it's his wife. And his wife says, "Irving, I just heard the news that there's a car going down the freeway in the wrong direction. So please, please be careful." He says, "Yeah, it's true. Not only there's one car, but there's hundreds of cars going the wrong way." Sometimes we take life experiences like this. We don't realize that we're maybe looking at things from a different direction, and we need to turn around and go a different way. Jesus said, "Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny, yet not one of them will fall to the ground apart from the will of your Father." Not one of them. There is an importance and a value to each and every person, to each and every life, to each and every being in this universe. And there is an awareness of a presence and a power that is beyond even the physical form and even beyond the life experiences that we get caught up in and we react to. In Matthew 10:30, he goes on to say, "And even the very hairs of your head are all numbered." Even the very hairs of your head are all numbered. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. You know, we get this message every time I go into Scripture, and it's just throughout every verse, it seems, there's something in there about don't be afraid. "Fear not, little flock. It is the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom." See, we're being told by the Christ not to be afraid. Well, that's easy to say, isn't it? But it's not always easy to do. But I'm going to suggest to you that that's really a big part of our work, is learning to turn away from our fears, learning to move past them, learning to turn our focus away from them. Instead of continuing to go against our fears, turning around and going in a different direction, going in a different way. In Luke chapter 5, verse 10, there was James and John and the sons of Zebedee, Simon's partners. And then Jesus said to Simon, "Don't be afraid, for now you will catch men." Don't be afraid. Again, he starts off with that, don't be afraid. So they pulled their boats ashore and they left everything and followed him. They followed him. They followed him into this idea, this understanding that they don't have to be afraid. Is it possible that we really don't have to be afraid? I'm going to suggest to you, that's the very essence of this message. It's the very essence of the message of unity. It's the very essence of the message of spirituality. We really don't have to be afraid. Now, let me clarify something here. Let me make it very clear that I'm not going to stand up here and tell you that I am never afraid. That would be a lie. I'd be afraid to tell you that. Because there are times that I am afraid. Or let me rephrase that, because that's just not the truth of my being. Have you ever said to yourself, "I'm afraid"? I'm going to suggest to you, you lied. See, you've never been afraid. You have never been afraid. I have had fear. The trick is, the secret is, the real lesson here for us, the real learning for us, I think, is to recognize that we may have fear, but the important thing is not to let fear have us. Can you understand the difference? Can you see the significance of the difference? We sometimes will have fear in life. We will translate things in such a way that we will create this idea, this understanding that there's something here to be fearful of. And where we run into a real problem is we identify with our fear. And we believe that's the real. And we believe that's who we are. And we believe that that is what is running us. And we allow it then to run us because we've made that, in a real sense, the director of our thoughts, the director of our feelings. But I'm going to suggest to you that you have never been a fear, and you've never been afraid. You've had the energy and the emotion of fear, but the reality is it never has had you, because that's not who you are. You are a spiritual being. You are the presence of the divine manifesting and expressing in this world. And part of our understanding and work is to shift our consciousness in such a way that we are identifying not with what we fear, but identifying with our true nature, with the Spirit of God within. Over and over again, we kept hearing this message from Jesus, and I think we hear it from Buddha, we hear it even from Muhammad, we hear it from all Krishna, from in Hinduism. There's a message there that there's something greater than our fears. There's something greater than our fears. Now, unfortunately, sometimes those messages are confused. And there's a belief system that somehow by fighting against our fear, that somehow we're going to prevail. And what we don't quite get, what's really not quite understood, is that the energy that we use to try to fight against our fear is actually giving more energy and power to our fear. You see, there's a principle at work in the universe. We are creative beings. We're created in the image and after the likeness of the divine. And we're creative as creative beings, and we're in the process of creating continuously. And we're doing that oftentimes, sometimes consciously, oftentimes very unconsciously. And so part of our work is to shift our energy in such a way that we are attuning to that true nature of who and what we are, and not allowing ourselves to get caught up in the illusions, the limitations, the fears. In 1 John chapter 4:19, there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear, because fear has torment, and he that fears is not in perfect love. So one of the things that came to me is that, in my meditation, is that we really cannot allow those who are committed to using fear as a weapon, we cannot allow them to turn us into terrorists. I know that may seem strange to you to say that, but we cannot allow those who are committed to fear to allow us to become a part of that system. We can't put our energy into trying to make them be something else, but what we can do is begin to shift our energy in such a way that we can have an effect in ways that perhaps we hadn't realized before. Henry Van Dyke once said, "A peace which depends on fear is nothing but a suppressed war." Let me say that again. A peace which depends on fear is nothing but a suppressed war. So our anger, our hatred, our resentment, our frustration, our rage, none of this will bring about the kind of peace that we really are truly hoping to experience in life. Nehru, one of the great followers of Gandhi, said, "Logic and cold reason are poor weapons to fight fear and distrust. Only faith and generosity can overcome fear." And Henry Thoreau said, nothing is so much to be feared as fear. Our real challenge here in life, in dealing with the circumstances of life, and dealing with the seeming insanities that seem to go on in our life, is for us to do what is needed in order to heal what is going on in us about what's going on out here. Marie Curie, the great scientist who has made such a powerful impact in changing so many things in our world, said nothing in life is to be feared, it's only to be understood. And I came across another great quote, Michael de Montaigne. He said, the man who fears suffering is already suffering from what he fears. Let me say that again, because there's a powerful awareness in these sayings. The man or woman who fears suffering is already suffering from what he fears. And so my desire this morning is to really take some time to do some reflection and some healing work around the experiences that are going on, that have gone on, and do some healing work not only for those who are directly hurt and suffering from this, but also do healing work within ourselves about how we can be a part of a shift. Lloyd Douglas said, if a man harbors any sort of fear, it percolates through all his thinking and damages his personality and makes him landlord to a ghost. So let me say a little bit more about that. The Course in Miracles tells us that the opposite of love is fear. But what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. Let me say that again. The opposite of love is fear. But what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. And it goes on to say, perfect love casts out fear. If fear exists, then there is not perfect love, but only perfect love exists. If there is fear, it produces a state that doesn't exist. Jesus said, God is love, and they that abide in God, love, abide in God, and God abides in them. Let's just breathe that in a second. God is love, and they that abide in love abide in God, and God in them. The more we allow ourselves to be in that energy of love, the more we allow ourselves to be attuned to the frequencies of love. Again, and these are frequencies. They're energies. As we allow ourselves to attune to the frequency of love, I can assure you the frequency of fear cannot enter. They're two frequencies that cannot coincide. Can you see that? They're different wave patterns even, you know? Fear is like this, and love is like this. And can you see how those two cannot be coinciding? They can't be coinciding within us. They can't be coinciding in our lives. They can't be coinciding in our world. So our work is to begin to shift from this to this. Again, in the Course of Miracles, it has already been said that you believe you cannot control fear because you yourself made it. And your belief in it seems to render it out of your control. Yet any attempt to resolve the error through attempting the mastery of fear is useless. In fact, it asserts the power of fear by the very assumption that it needs to be mastered. The true resolution rests entirely on mastery through love. Mastery through love. Yeah. Freeman Dyson said that it's better to get mugged than to live a life of fear. And the reality is that when we are living in the energy of fear, we are actually participating in helping to create a world that we see and experience through the eyes, through the vision, through the glasses, through the goggles, whatever you want to call it, through the perceptions of fear. And we help participate in creating more of that in our life and in the life around us. It can create a real inferiority complex. You know, an inferiority complex, I came across this wonderful saying from one of my favorite speakers and teachers, Anonymous. Inferiority complex is a conviction by a jury of our fears. Yeah, someone said, I resemble that remark, right? So I came across this wonderful awareness from a great book by Stella Terraman, a wonderful Unity teacher and writer, who wrote a wonderful book called Make Your Dreams Come True. She said, when we have enough love, we get rid of fear. And we want to be rid of fear, for it will draw to us that which we do not want. Let me say that again, because that's an important awareness also. We are creative beings. We are magnets. We are magnetizing whatever we are putting our attention and our focus into. Even if it is on an unconscious level, if we're putting energy into it by repressing it, we're actually feeding it. You realize that? So even when we push down our fear, try to hide from it, we try to say, I'm not afraid. I've got all these guns behind me. I'm not afraid. That's a lie. Truth is, it's not a lie. We are in the midst of fear the moment that we think we have to have some force out here in order to protect us. Do you realize that? And we're adding even more fear into the world by doing that. We're adding more fear by thinking that we have to have something, a force, rather than tuning into the power of the universe, the power that is the divine, the power that is truth. Eric Butterworth said, fear and worry and anger are conditioned reflexes to outside stimuli, and when we really know that life is lived from within out, then no matter what happens around us to us, we can always get into the transcendental flow from within us. You see, fear is actually, I'm going to say something here that may surprise you, but fear is actually a divine quality. You realize that? Well, that's not exactly accurate. Let me rephrase it. Fear is a use of a divine quality. In fact, it's a use of a couple of divine qualities. We have these divine qualities in us called faith and imagination. And oftentimes we combine those two, of faith and imagination, and they are extremely powerful. Do you realize that faith and imagination is what brings into your experiences everything that goes on in your life and world? That and love, of course. But see, faith and imagination without that energy of love, faith and imagination placed in an imaginary thought system that we generate is called fear. Faith in in something happening that we don't want to happen is called fear. And so part of our overcoming of fear is to recognize what we're putting our faith and our imagination into and making a different choice. What are we putting our faith and imagination? Now think about it not only in terms of world events, but think about all those little anxieties and fears that you've got going for you right now. Anybody not have any of those? Anybody not have any little worries, anxieties, and fears? I want to learn from you if you do. So, we all have got them, right? And we put energy into them whether we realize it or not. And part of our work is to shift our consciousness in such a way that we're no longer putting our energy in the fear and putting our energy in to our possibilities and putting our focus of attention and our faith into the divine good, the light, the love. I thought about this in terms of, I shared with some of you a while back that I had a great opportunity at Edwin Gaines' retreat center in Alabama. And part of that work was a very powerful experience, and that was the fire walk. And we've got a few folks in here that have gone through a similar kind of experience, gone through a firework. And a fire walk is exactly what it says. You're walking on fire. And she builds this amazing strip of coals that are glowing, and they are just as bright red as Merry Christmas, a Christmas emblem or whatever, or a Starbucks cup for that matter. They are absolutely bright red coals, and they are intensely hot. I can't remember what temperature she said that they tend to run. 1,500 degrees. And we had 30-something people there, and almost everyone walked across those coals, including myself. I walked across those coals, and to say that I wasn't afraid would not be the truth. I certainly had some fear. And at first I began to think about all of those fears, and I began to look at them, and I began to think about, well, what ifs, But what I learned through this program and through this process is that that's not what I need to focus on. What I need to focus on is being able to walk across these coals and being safe and being secure and being okay and being healthy and being happy and feeling free. And I can tell you the moment, and I can tell you, I walked across these coals barefooted. And after I stepped off, and they had you step off into some water, After I stepped off, I had no burns, I had no pain, and I had no fear. I had no fear. Because there was something that was working in my consciousness and through my consciousness that was allowing me to step above all of the images that I'd created of the worst that could happen. The worst case scenario kind of thing. What if we really shifted our attention away from the worst case scenario and really putting our focus into the best possible solutions? It really is that simple. It really is that simple. Don't get me wrong, it's not always that easy, unless we just tend to believe that it really is easy, and then it becomes easier, right? So part of our work is to shift our focus, shift our attention, and keep our focus not in the past of what we think has happened. See, Thich Nhat Hanh says, fear keeps us focused on the past or worried about the future. If we can acknowledge our fear, we can realize that right now, we are okay. Right now. Right now, today, we're alive still, thank you, God. And our bodies are working marvelously. Our eyes can still see this beautiful sky. Our ears can still hear the voice of our loved ones. And I'm going to suggest to you something that I think all of us really need to begin to recognize and wake up to. Even if, and this is, don't get me wrong, I want to be sensitive here, but I also want us to step beyond something. Even if we're no longer in these physical bodies, we are safe. Even if we're no longer in these physical bodies, we are safe. And the more we can tune into this knowing, we can begin to let go of one of the biggest fears it seems that we have in the human race, is not being in these physical bodies. Now we can choose, our choice, our preference is perhaps to stay in these physical bodies, and I know there are those that really would prefer that. And I prefer that at this point. And I also know that there are people who have chosen to say, no, I'm ready not to be in this physical body anymore, and have simply stepped out of them. And so it's not for us to be fearful of that experience, because the fear of that experience is one of the biggest challenges that we face in our life, because we make decisions in our life so many times not based upon the desires of our heart and creating what we want to experience in life, but trying to avoid this one thing, and that is stepping out of our physical body. Dr. Hawkins, great teacher, spiritual teacher, and an MD, a PhD, he said, in serious spiritual work, it is necessary to have a few simple basic tools which are absolutely dependable and safe to rely on in order to walk through fear and uncertainty. One basic truth that is of inestimable, that's easy for me to say, right? Inestimable value and usefulness is the dictum that all fear is fallacious and not based on truth. All fear is fallacious. It's in error. Fear is overcome by walking directly through it until one breaks through into the joy that the fear is blocking. The joy that follows facing any spiritual fear comes from the discovery that it was merely an illusion without basis or reality. I know many of you have heard this acronym, FEAR, F-E-A-R, false expectations appearing real. So part of our shifting is to begin to recognize that we need to look at fear, but not step into it. We need to be aware of fear, that we have it, but it doesn't have us. So in our meditation time, we're going to do something a little bit different today. I'm going to do a little meditation that's based on, actually I want to tell you where this came from. This came from actually a friend of mine and one of my EFT teachers. He says, we live in a world in which the news is full of senseless tragedies, from terrorist attacks to school shootings to random acts of violence. These tragedies can disturb and upset us, and often we feel helpless because there seems to be nothing that we can do to prevent them or to help the people affected by them. However, there is always one thing that we can do, and that is to remain calm, loving, peaceful, and compassionate within ourselves. When we get upset, worried, angry, guilty, or sad, we're not in a position to offer anything helpful to those around us. But when we cultivate inner peace, regardless of the senseless tragedies in the world, we become a beacon of love and compassion to everyone around us. And from this empowered inner state, we are much better equipped to respond effectively and appropriately to the suffering in the world around us. And so he wrote something, a little meditation we're going to do, and this is actually going to be a tapping meditation. So I'm going to invite those of you who are familiar with tapping to tap along with me. Those of you who are not, you can simply observe. You can do this meditation with your eyes open or with your eyes closed. And it's a meditation for the purpose of helping us to heal whatever might be going on in us about senseless acts in life or in the world. And so I think we're going to go ahead and move right into our meditation time, and we'll have a song after, okay? So I'm going to have you start right here, and I'm going to follow along. Interesting thing about this is that Dawson was in Paris, and he's safe, and his wife is safe, and his people are safe. But it's one of the things that brought about this tapping meditation. And so, start here with your karate chop point, and all you have to do is watch me and then repeat back what I say. And as I said, those of you familiar with the tapping points, you can close your eyes if you want and just follow along. You'll know where to tap. If you're not familiar, feel free to keep your eyes open because it works just as well. And just do what I do and tap where I tap. So we're starting here. Even though I, I don't understand this senseless tragedy. And even though I can't believe people would do such a thing. And even though I can't believe this is happening. I deeply and completely accept myself. And I choose peace. Even though I can't believe there are such senseless tragedies and violence, I am willing to be an instrument of healing by loving and accepting myself and choosing peace. And let's go to the eyebrow point. I can't imagine the things that happen in the world. On the side of the eye, I can't believe we live in a world in which such things are possible. Under the eye, why would anyone do such a thing? Under the nose, it doesn't make any sense. On the chin, it doesn't make sense to hurt other people. It doesn't make sense to cause such suffering. And under your arm, it doesn't make sense to cause such violence. And top of the head, and even though all this violence and suffering makes no sense, and then the karate chop, I deeply and completely accept myself, and I choose peace. Eyebrow. If I could have been there, it could have been my family. It could have been my loved ones. It could have been my friends. It could have been anybody. All those poor people. Under the arm. All that suffering. All that violence. I can't help them. I can't help myself. I can't help the ones I love. I can't protect anyone. All my regrets. All my fears. All my feelings that I can't help them. All those helpless feelings. I can't help the people I love. Even though there's nothing I can do. Let's say that again. There's nothing I can do. 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 Nothing I can do to help those who are suffering. I deeply and completely accept myself. And take a nice deep breath while we're tapping. One more nice deep breath. And one more nice deep breath. And there's more. Eyebrow. I now send love from my heart. To all those who are suffering. As a result of this senseless tragedy. I now send love from my heart. To all the people in the world who are suffering. I now send love from my heart. To all the people I know. To all the people I know. All my friends and all my family. I now send love from my heart. to myself, to the parts of myself that are suffering, to the parts of myself that are violent, to the parts of myself that are senseless, to the parts of myself that cause harm, to the parts of myself that hurt others, that cause them harm. I choose to send love. And even though I'm not perfect, I'm willing to accept myself, and I'm willing to choose love. Nice deep breath. Another nice deep breath. Let's tap on the karate chop. Another nice deep breath. And back to the eyebrow point. I don't know why this tragedy happened. And I feel I'm powerless to do anything about it. I can't even understand it. And even though I'm unable to understand it, and even though I'm unable to help, and even though I can't do anything, and even though I'm helpless, I deeply and completely accept myself. I can't help them. I can't help myself. I can't help anybody. And even though I'm helpless, I deeply and completely accept myself and choose love. Nice deep breath. Another nice deep breath. One more nice deep breath. My being upset is not going to help anybody. My being angry is not going to help anybody. My being angry and upset, and by being angry and upset, I'm adding more anger and upset to the world. And I choose to release it. I choose to release it. I choose to release my own suffering. I choose to be at peace. Despite this terrible tragedy, I send peace and love from my heart to everybody suffering. I send peace and love from my heart to those who are suffering. To my own suffering mind, I send peace and love from my heart to the whole world. Despite this terrible tragedy, I choose to be at peace. I use this terrible tragedy as a reminder of how important it is for me to choose peace. As a reminder to be a person of peace in the world. No matter how violent the world is, I choose to be a person of peace. I choose to be a person of love. I choose to be a person of kindness. I choose to be a person of peace, love, and kindness. Nice deep breath. Another nice deep breath. Let's keep some tapping going. I resolve that every thought I think will be nothing but peace and kindness. I resolve that every feeling in my heart will be nothing but compassion and love. Filling myself now with compassion, love, peace, and kindness. I send that energy out into the world. And to touch and heal everyone. Let's go here. I am a powerful creator. And I have powerful energy. And I now send that powerful energy out into the world. To touch everyone else with peace, compassion, love, and kindness. And that is what I can do. This is my power. I may feel powerless, but in the face of this seemingly tragedy, this senseless tragedy, I have power. The power to send the energy of love out into the world. I have this power. I accept this power to create peace and love in my own heart, in my body, in my own energy field, and I claim that power now to create peace and love in myself, to send those intentions out into the world. I am a powerful creator, and I choose to use my creativity to create peace and love within myself and all around me, no matter what else is happening in the world, and no matter what choices other people make. My choice is clear. I've made a choice. And my choice is to be a person of peace and love. In my own mind, in my own body, in my own energy field, I radiate peace and love all around me. Despite this senseless tragedy, despite all the tragedies in the world, I choose to be a person of love, of peace. I choose to be a beacon of love and peace. I choose to be a person of compassion and kindness. Nice deep breath. And just a little more. No matter what choices everybody else makes, I choose how I feel. Only I choose the kind of person I am. And I choose to be a person of love. I choose to be a beacon of kindness. I choose to be a person of compassion. I fill my own heart with compassion. I fill my own body with compassion. And I fill my own mind with compassion. And I walk into this day as a beacon of love, a beacon of compassion. Kindness is not weakness. Compassion is not weakness. Peace is not weakness. Love is not weakness. Compassion is stronger than fear. Kindness is stronger than violence. Peace is stronger than any tragedy. Love is stronger than fear. And as a person of love and kindness and peace, I now walk into this day, and my heart is at peace. My mind is at rest. And I am strong. I am love. I am peace. I am kindness. I am compassion. I am. Nice deep breath. I am. Another nice deep breath. I am. Nice deep breath. I am. Another 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 nice deep breath. I am. One more nice deep breath. And thank you for participating in that with me. And thank you for being a person of peace and kindness and the love that you are. And so it is. Amen.